everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I want to talk about something that's deep and dark and just something that really hit home with me years after coming forward with my evidence regarding my abuse. And that is how I collected all of the evidence all along throughout my relationship with my abuser. It's really something that is important. It's a very important piece for anyone that's in an abusive relationship because the evidence is what supports you if you go to the police or if you need to share this information with anyone else. When you verbally tell someone that you are being harmed, it becomes hearsay. So it's your word basically against theirs, the abusers. And the abusers are pretty smart for the most part and know what to do and what to say to get out of relationship issues. My abuser, with his position as a police officer, he had the knowledge, he knew what to expect in court, and he knew what to do in order to protect himself. And he put that fear in me by using his words, so verbally, so that I wouldn't share his secrets with the police or with anyone. And that was a way of controlling me as well. And I'm pretty sure that if you're in a relationship where you're dealing with abuse, you are going through something similar, if not the same. So first off, my very first tip number one, is create an account, an email account that your abuser will not have access to. So it won't be done on your home computer. It won't be done on your phone. It's going to be done on a friend or family member's computer or phone. So you're going to create that account. You're only going to go into it when you have access to another means to retrieve your Hotmail or Google account. So you don't want to use it on your phone because your history is going to show that. Same with at home, your home computer, your history is going to show that, and they will go into the history. Mine did constantly, just to see what was going on and what you were Googling and if you were looking for that help. And that's the last thing you want to do is allow them to find out that you're looking for help. You're trying to put them in a position where they're going to be vulnerable and the truth will come out. So you're hiding this from them and you're doing it to protect yourself and your family. So tip number one, create your own Hotmail or Google email account. Tip number two, if you're in the relationship now and you're texting, everyone texts back and forth. That's what we do nowadays. It's how we communicate, which isn't the best form of communication whatsoever. We should really focus on face-to-face or telephone. But usually our abusers hide behind the screen and will send you text messages. And these text messages can be very, very good evidence because they will at first, when they first start to get into the relationship and it's abusive, they'll start to hold back because they're smart. They believe that they're smart and they're holding back that information so that it doesn't incriminate them. But as time goes on, if their only form of communication or the majority of the communication is through text, they're going to slip up and they're going to start becoming more comfortable by sending you text messages. And those text messages could be threatening you, they could be threatening the family, they could be threatening themselves, they could be telling you that they're in control, or even an apology for what happened the night before when they hit you, or any type of abusive contact, any type of abusive wording should be screenshotted and then emailed to your account. Then you're going to go into your the account that you created. Then you're going to go into your memory and you're going to delete all of that in your memory. If you don't know how to do that, Google it. There's lots of it's your history. There's lots of advice on how to do that, or ask a friend. But you want to make sure that you're not leaving a trail. So when you are Googling it, make sure that you're doing it on somebody else's phone. So that's another thing. So texting, you're going to screenshot all of the evidence that you have, and you're going to email it. It's one thing to have it on your phone, but when your abuser has contact with you and is in control of you, they have your phone in their hand, they can do whatever they want, meaning they can delete that information, and there goes all of your evidence. So it's really key that you screenshot and send it immediately when you have it. That means it's going to be in a separate spot, and you'll have access to it whenever you need it. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3. You'll get to a point in your relationship where you're separated, you're going through the divorce, and you are at a point where you need to block your abuser. Your abuser is no longer living with you, and your abuser has caused enough harm. So you've chosen to block them. Now the only form of communication that they have with you is face-to-face, or it's going to be through email. Now I will warn you that they get desperate. When they can't control you any longer, they get so desperate they will do anything. You don't think that they would harm you. You don't think that they would embarrass you and come to your workplace. Yet you know, in your brain, you know that they've already harmed you by grabbing and squeezing you, throwing you up against the wall, hitting you, punching you, slapping you, pinching you. All of those things are abuse. But yet in our minds, our survival brain, it tells us, okay, we lived through it, so we're okay. We're okay, no big deal. And I'll explain that a little bit more down the road, but it's a protection mechanism. It's basically, if you think of it this way, it's your body putting a suit of armor on and making sure that you live through these horrific moments. The slapping, the hitting, the pinching, the punching, the throwing up against the wall, the throwing down onto furniture, the tripping. All of those things are abuse and should not be happening. But our bodies and our brains know what to do, and they put us in a position so that we can survive it. So going back to what I was saying, when we put up that wall with our abuser and we tell our abuser, okay, enough, we're no longer going to communicate with you. I've blocked you on my phone. You can no longer call me. You can no longer text me. They will find other ways. And like I said, you might think they won't harm you at your workplace or in public, but they will. I can speak to that as I have had it happen. My abuser showed up at my work after I blocked him, and he drove past the parking lot, and then he decided to send me an email telling me that he was at my work, and he saw my vehicle and that I was there, and then proceeded to call my work, and then yelled and screamed, and my coworker heard it, and he was threatening me over the phone. So these things do happen. You have to be prepared for that, and that was a situation that I was not prepared for, nor was I in control over. And in that moment, all I could think of was, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be in trouble because this happened in the workplace. But yet, it was not my fault. I was not to blame. It was my abuser's fault. My abuser should have been reprimanded on the spot, but again, you're in a position where you don't know what to do, and my workplace was in a position where they didn't know what to do, and we can only learn from this experience and know that should violence happen at the workplace, that we react, even if it's not an employee, even if it's not an employee doing it, but it's an employee that is the victim of it happening in the workplace, then we need to react. And we need to call 911, even if the employee, the victim, does not want that to happen. So moving forward, be prepared. Be prepared for them to show up where they know your schedule, like such as a workplace. Or if you have a regular routine, you go to the gym or you go get groceries on a certain day, if they know about it, they might show up, they might be there. So you have to be prepared. You have to think about that. You have to understand that when you're in your vehicle, you're locked in until you have had the opportunity to do the whole 360 review around your vehicle and in the parking lot before you exit your vehicle. That way you know that you're parked under a light, you have people around you should you need help. You're thinking about all of those things. So light, people around you, I don't see the vehicle that my abuser drives. I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm gonna unlock the door, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna go do my grocery shopping. Same thing when you come back out. You're looking around, you're observant, you come out with a group of people. Those are all things that we will talk about down the road as I do more episodes. But today we're gonna focus on the collecting of evidence. So number one was we create a new Hotmail or Google email account. Number two is we focus on the text messages. Anything that shows any type of violence or any type of concern, we're screenshotting it and we're emailing it to our email address that we created. And then we're going into our history and we are deleting our history from our phone or our computer. 99% of the time it's going to be your phone that you're doing it from, so you'll delete your history. Then number three is you no longer have contact with them through phone or text messages, so now they're either coming to talk to you face to face, which you're going to be prepared for, or they will start emailing you. And just like as the text messages, at first it's a very laid back, protective kind of message. The body is not going to reveal too much yet. But as they get more and more comfortable and frustrated with the fact that they no longer control your every move and your every minute, and they no longer have an understanding as to what you're doing in your life, they become frantic and they panic. And they feel like the world is falling apart, and they feel like you're telling the whole world, you're standing on top of a mountain, you've got a big microphone, and you're telling the world what they've just done, and they panic and they become desperate. And then they start sending you more emails, one after another, with all of this cryptic information in it. And those emails are emails that you're going to forward to your new email account, and you're going to keep that evidence. Once you have all of this evidence, it could be videos too. You might have a video of your abuser harming you or threatening to harm you or the kids or your home or any type of property that you have, your vehicle. That is all clear evidence. And if you don't feel comfortable going to the police when it happens, that is your right. I want to say that to you right now, because so many people will come back and say, well, why didn't you just go to the police? Why didn't you tell them? There are reasons why we don't do that. Our mind and our body tells us, okay, we're not ready yet. This isn't safe yet. This doesn't feel safe yet. I don't feel like I'm supported, and I'm scared as hell. And you have every right to feel those emotions, and you have every right to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, and when it's right. So I want to make that very clear. Do not listen to what other people say after you've already gone through the motions, because they're wrong. They weren't in your shoes. They didn't live the life that you lived, and they don't understand. And they don't have to understand, because this is your life. You went through it, and you did what was right for you in every single moment. So let's go back. So the three things that we're going to do is we're going to open up a new account, Hotmail, Google, whatever it is, a new email account. Your abuser isn't going to know about it. Number 2, you're going to screenshot all of the pictures, text messages, anything that is harmful, abusive. You're going to screenshot that and email it to your new account. Number 3, any emails that you receive from your abuser, you're going to email them to your new account. Any pictures, any comments, any links to any cryptic sites or suggestive, negative, abusive comments, all of that is evidence. So you're going to forward that to your email address. You're going to go into your history of your phone and or your iPad or your computer, and you're going to delete that history so that your abuser cannot find it. Then what you will do is you will come to a point where you need to get this in chronological order and keep it in chronological order. And that's for you, and it's for you and for whoever you're going to share this information with, if you need to share it with somebody down the road. So what you do is you go and you have this all printed. You can do it in the most safest place ever, whether that be at someone else's house, a Staples, someplace where you are safe and it's not at your home where your abuser is going to find out or come in and be aware that this is what you're doing. So you print this information, you put it in chronological order. That's key, because that will help you when you get to a point where you do come forward and you do talk to the police. You're in a state of shock. For me, I wasn't expecting to discuss it with the police at all. So I was very upset, very scared, very nervous. All of the emotions, I was feeling, and I wasn't feeling prepared. But I had just moved, and I went down to the basement where I knew my file was, and it was safe away from everyone. So I was able to go down and grab it as the officer waited outside for me as he was going to drive me to do my statement, because they knew that I was mentally not in a position to drive, and they wanted to make sure that I was safe and okay. So I went downstairs, I grabbed my file. I knew where it was. I'd forgotten in that moment, everything that was in there, and I just went with it, and I had it. And that's a huge burden, and that was lifted off my shoulders because I had that prepared. Something else that I had, and this is something that you can play with on your own, is all of the voice messages. So at our house, because this happened a few years ago, we had the old school answering machine where it was like a tape or whatever, and you call in and it stayed with the phone base. The messages stayed with that base. So I kept that because there were a lot of my abuser calling and screaming into the phone over and over and over again repetitively. So I kept that, and I provided that to the police as well. But when we have our cell phones, our messages are only stored in there for, I believe it's a week or something like that. So what you can do is take a friend's phone and you can record that, or your laptop, and you can record the message by putting it on speaker, and then email that to your email address. Something that you can play with. I'm sure that there are other options out there. I'm not really technically savvy, so I do the basics that I know will work for me. But just keep that in mind, that's really good evidence too. It's also something else that I forgot to mention is the phone calls. So prior to blocking your abuser, if you're 5 minutes late or not where you're supposed to be when you say, you're normally home, and it's 5 o'clock and you're normally home from work at 5 o'clock and it's 5:05, and your abuser's thinking, where the hell is she or he? So then they start calling constantly. Meanwhile, you're just getting gas. You're behind because something ran wrong at work and you're getting gas. But your abuser calls, 10, 20, 50 times, 70 times in a span of a few minutes. Screenshot that. It'll tell in your call history, it will show their name, and then beside it in brackets, it shows how many times they tried to call you. The call is outgoing, or incoming, I should say, incoming. And that is really key evidence that your abuser has issues, right? This is happening multiple times. There's some issues there. So it adds to the evidence, and it's more proof that there is some problems with this person. So that's something else that I had in my file. So gather this evidence, put it in chronological order, and have it ready. Have it in a spot. It doesn't have to be your home, because 9 times out of 10, your abuser, if you have children, will have access to it. In my case, he didn't. But in other cases, they may. So the best spot would be at a family member's, your parents' home, a best friend, someone that you trust and that you know will have a spot to keep this sealed document safe and out of anyone else's hands. And also a place that you can just go and grab it when you need it. So that is my advice. There will be a lot more information down the road about how to handle the emotions and whatnot when you're going through this. It is something that we definitely don't understand. When we're doing it, I don't know how else to express myself other than by saying, when you're in the moment and you're in that survival mode, you just do. There's no rhyme or reason. Nobody trained me. Nobody talked to me. Nobody explained to me what I needed to do. I'm a manager. I have management experience and education, and that is what I know. And all I can tell you is from my management years, I used to investigate situations, and through my investigative techniques, I learned that having the file ready and in chronological order is required, and it saves lots of time, and it also makes for successful outcome when you're going through any type of legal process. It's just something that I did, and I'm sharing my advice and my experience with you because it was successful. When the police did get my file, they took a photocopy of everything and gave me the originals back. I, to this day, still have them, and when it's right for me, I will have a burning party and I will get rid of those documents. They no longer serve a purpose because they've already been discussed, and my abuser was found guilty and pled guilty, and also was convicted of the crimes he committed. So in saying all of that, it was a much smoother process rather than trying to remember things after the fact. I will tell you that not everything I had in my evidence file was something that I remembered in that moment with talking to the police, because all of the things that came to my head were the things that just kind of were the big items, the big situations, I should say, that just happened to me most recently. Those were the items that were fresh and were on top of my brain and came to the surface first. Days, even years after speaking to the police, I recall more and more information. In fact, I ran into one of the officers who used to be someone who my abuser spoke to on a regular basis, I would say. They didn't work side by side, but they worked for different police departments, and they spoke to one another. And when I ran into this officer, he reminded me that there was a call, a 911 call, and as soon as he reminded me about that, it came to mind. I had forgotten all about that. It was pushed down so far that it was something that I didn't deal with and I still haven't dealt with. So just be aware that there are things like this that come to the surface. And when this officer told me, reminded me that 911 call, that was you, wasn't it? And my abuser answered the door, and my abuser said, no, it was probably my son playing with an old cell phone. And I panicked, because if I would have said to that officer that came to the door, no, it was me, I called, I'm scared, help me, I feared that my abuser would take my life or would harm me further. So I panicked, and I went with my abuser's story. And the officer did his job and asked me, and I still couldn't tell the truth because I was so scared. It wasn't the right time. So that is something that I want you to understand is okay. It's okay to recognize that you can't grasp help yet. You have to do what's right in the moment for you. And that officer understood now, with all of this, coming to the forefront, that I did need help. And his gut was right, but there wasn't anything that he could do for me because I chose in that moment that the safest thing for me was to agree with my abuser and not tell the truth. So don't beat yourself up over the things that you've forgotten. It's your mind protecting you. It's your body putting on that armor and keeping it on and for that specific incident and saying, okay, we can't deal with this right now. So we're just gonna push that down in the filing cabinet of the brain, and we'll deal with that when we're ready. And having that conversation with the officer a couple of years after the fact brought it to the surface, and I was able to speak with my therapist and talk about it a little bit more. And I'm still dealing with that, but I'm understanding why I did it. So don't beat yourself up over these things. They're totally normal. The memories are there at the right time when you need them, and when your body and your mind can handle it. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to contact me. Write a comment below. And if you enjoy getting this information, I know it's deep and dark, but it's something that is important for anybody that's in an abusive situation. So if you are in an abusive situation, or if you know of somebody that is, share this link. It could save someone's life. It could help someone. Again, any comments, put them below. Follow me on Facebook, and make sure you hit like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.